All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is find the spreadsheet here that I have some of my data linked to, and I'm going to share that screen here with this example one that I came up with here is, there's many different uses for Google Sheets, and I just thought one example that might be relative here to teachers would be a SPED behavior tracker form. And so I dump some data into a Google form, and I use the Sheets function of Google Form to show my data in this spreadsheet format. So you're going to see here that we have three teachers. We have Professor McGonagall, Professor Snape, and Hagrid, and three and four students. We have Hermione, Harry, Draco, and Ron. And each of those teachers daily is expected to award points to those students based on how well they stay on task, how respectful they are toward their peers and towards adults. So, you've probably seen many other forms that are something similar to that, maybe with different behavior criteria, but in the rankings that go along with them. So right here, I just have this spreadsheet with all of this data for a week about these four students. And I want to do some things here to be able to dig into this data as well as to kind of make it a little bit more presentable. So the first thing that I want to do here is this first row of your spreadsheet here. If you're going to want to be able to sort by these different columns, you're going to want to freeze the data in this first row. There's a simple, easy way to do that. I'm just going to highlight this first row, go up to View, and then choose Freeze. And I'm just going to say up to row 1. Now, what that is going to allow me to do is be able to sort by any column that I want to, and that first row is going to stay in place. So for example, if I wanted to be able to sort by student, I'm going to click on the little triangle there in column B where it says student, and I'm just going to sort this sheet from A to Z. So when I do that, you'll see Draco's, all of his entries are sorted out, and then Harry's, Hermione's, and Ron's, right? And so it focused on that particular column, but all of the rest of the data in that row went with it with that particular move. So that's kind of one thing that you should do here right away when you open up a spreadsheet such as this, if it's not already frozen for you. Another thing that to me makes this a little bit hard to read and follow is that there's differences in right and left justification within the different columns. For just a thing that Google Sheets tries to do is if it has numerical data, it likes to right justify it. And if it has text data, it likes to left justify it. But it kind of loses a little bit of that meaning to me here if these dates are right next to that student. So another thing I can do here is to change that justification by clicking on that column and then going to my toolbar across the top. And instead of it being right justified, I'm going to choose to make it left. And I override then that feature that says put all numbers to the right. I can do that same thing here with these three columns by selecting all of them at one time and changing them to left justified also. Now, sometimes you may also say that the standard size for these cells might be a little too wide and you can reduce them down. So if you grab the line on the column here and drag it over, you'll see then that it reduces some of those spaces. Well, again, don't be afraid to drag the columns to the width that you need them. Another useful thing here is sometimes you get text that is going to run outside of this particular cell. So respectful toward, and then I can't read it. So one of the things that you can do in that particular case, again, up here by these toolbars, there is a text wrapping button. If I choose to text wrap this cell, it will make that row bigger, but now all of a sudden I can see all of the words that are in that particular cell and it stays in that particular column. So I know exactly what that is. So those are some helpful things here to help organize your data and to sort your data. But I might want to pull out data about a particular student. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a tab or a separate sheet that's going to go along the bottom that's going to be for this particular student, Draco Malfoy. So to do that, and I want to keep all of that stuff the same, there's a couple of different ways to do this. I could go down and hit this plus button that is in the way bottom left corner of my Google Sheet, and it would make a new sheet for me, and it puts it right here, as you can see, sheet one. The other way that you can do that is if I want to bring the data with it and not have to copy and paste everything over, I can go and I can duplicate that whole sheet. And you can see it gave me one across the bottom. That's a copy of it, right? I don't want to leave it called that. If I double click on the text there, I can rename that sheet. And now I can switch back and forth between all the data I have about Draco, about Hermione, about Harry, and about Ron. And I've done some sorting already about these other ones as well. So now that I have this one, and I just want it to be Draco, since I've sorted it by Draco here in the student column, I can go and select all the rest of the data, go up to Edit and Delete rows 17 through 58. So as you can see, I just have the Draco data here. Now, I didn't lose all the rest because I have this master one still here that has all of the rest of the data. But I've just separated it here out by Draco in particular. So that's one of the things here that's kind of nice about these Google Sheets too, is to be able to break down in the same document and still have all these different tabs that you need. Now, the next thing here that I want to be able to do is I want to be able to label this a little bit easier to know what student I'm talking about. So I'm going to go up here to my first row again, and I'm going to add another row above the one I'm working in. So you could see it got added above this frozen line. So whenever I scroll data, that line will be there also. Now I'm going to grab these cells here from A1 to F1 because that's kind of the range of my sheet data. And I'm going to do another thing here underneath the formatting menu. And I'm going to merge these cells together. And when I do that, you could see there's no longer that little line separating these different columns. So now it treats this one as, or this particular thing as one giant cell. So I can go and I can type Draco Malfoy, and I can go behavior tracking sheet. Right? Now, what happens here if I want to change the size of this so it stands out a little bit more? And you could see that it gets bigger as I do so. The other thing that I could do is I could change the color of this, and maybe I want to make that maybe a light blue color here. Okay, and you
You were
could
gonna
see
say,
it.
I thought you were gonna say green because Slytherin, but
Oh, okay, that's a good point. Let's make Draco a greenish color here.
there you go. That's
Right,
Slytherin
that's better?
colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Although, yeah. Now that you say that, I did make Harry red, and I
Did
didn't
you?
really do that because that's a Gryffindor color, right? Red and
Yeah.
gold. Green
Yep.
and black right here definitely are the Slytherin colors. Good use of that. The other thing that I wanna do here too that I can show you here is I can change this to a center, and you see it centers within that merged cell range, which is kind of a nice feature to be able to have there. Okay, now I'm going to jump ahead here because I've done a little bit of setting up here on this next sheet. And this one here, as you can see, I didn't put across the top these merged cells, but I can quickly do that again. And I can go to format and I can merge them because this one is for Hermione Granger. And what color should she be? She's Gryffindor also, right? So let's make her a red, but let's change the text color. Maybe that's a little bit too dark of a red. Can I go gold on red? Ooh, look at that. I don't know if that is for accessibility the best thing to do, but it gets the point across on all the different things that you could do with this. Okay. Now, one of the things that I had done for Hermione is, if you'll notice here in the Draco one, I removed the column that said student. Why? Because it's just all about Hermione anyway. And that's a really easy thing to do here. If I select column B, and I can go through here and I can go to delete column because I don't need to have Draco repeated there. So that's one of the things that I've already done on this Hermione one. The second thing that I did is I had gone through and I had sorted the column by date. So I went and chose A to Z. And so that's why you're seeing all of the February 1st ones here, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth ones going down. I also inserted a couple of other columns because I wanted to come up with an average that Hermione was getting on a particular day. So, and I also wanted to sum up their total points that they would get on a particular day. So I want to show you those functions here really quick because I think they're super helpful and pretty easy to do. So just like with other Google products, there's multiple ways to do the same thing. So if I'm in a cell right here, I could go up to the functions menu that's in the toolbar, and I could choose some from here. But you can also do it just by typing in that cell. If you begin with an equals symbol, it is going to tell you what it already thinks that you want it to do. But if that's not quite it, if you want it to be a sum, like add up the numbers in a particular range, you can do that. And then you can select them by, oops, hang on here, equal sum. And then you need the parentheses. Then I can select the range that I want and close the parentheses, and it'll do it. Now, if I'm doing that and it gives me one that oh, yep, I see, I want this range, I can just hit the tab button and it's going to do it for me. The other nice thing here that it's going to do is if I click in this cell and I choose to copy it, it doesn't copy 15. What it copies is the formula that's entered into that cell. So now if I go and I choose to paste in this next cell, that's why you see it's not 15 anymore, it's 14. I can do the same thing here by pasting that in as a group. So let me do that here for these. Oop, I didn't select the range that time. Let me try that again. And paste those in. Now, you may also want to do a total number of points that a student might get in a particular day. So if I start here again and I go equal a sum and choose that range that I want, close the parentheses, you could see that it gave me then her total points that day. Google Sheets is pretty smart. I can go and copy this one here and paste it here. And you could see that it knows that it wants these 3 cells right above it because it uses that smart type stuff. Now, you also don't have to choose to sum cells that are in a particular order that stay together all the time. You can separate out different ones that you want to by clicking on the different cells here and adding a plus button in between them. So now I'm going to get total points for all of these different added up together cells and then close it with parentheses, and you can see it gave me total points for the week. Kind of a neat little thing that you can do. Okay, now there is another function that's also pretty helpful, and this one is called the average function. To get to it, you also start typing the equal sign, and again here, you follow the same format, so I'm just going to say that is the exact average that I want, and I choose that. And again, if I go and copy I can go to both these days and paste. I can go to all these days and paste. I can go to all these days and paste, and just repeat that until I get to the end of the data that I want. Oops, I didn't select, no, there we go. Now, who wants all of these different numbers right here after that decimal point? I don't. Did you know that you can, if you're on a Mac, okay, you can hold down the Command key and click on each of these different individual cells without selecting the whole range in between them. Then I can go up and use another format tool called number and change them to an easier to read decimal point. So pretty slick, pretty easy to be able to do that. Again, using the same way as I did total points, you can also take the averages of these different columns right here. I'm going to skip over that just because of time. So that's kind of a nice feature to be able to use here as well.